Hi, I'm Julieann Hartman, and welcome to The Journey. Today's show is about my friend Colleen Iammarino. Now, Colleen had a very crazy life growing up. Not only did she have a similar background like mine with an alcoholic father, very dysfunctional, but she was pregnant at 15. She was married several times to men that were very abusive to her. It is an incredible story that you don't want to miss. Not only did she have all of those problems, but she also ended up with the worst back pain that anybody could ever live with, screaming in pain most days with her back. She was finally diagnosed with RSD. And so because of that, she had to take many medications to try to just at least keep her in a state where she could function, at least just be alive. So I can't wait for you to see part 2 of Colleen Iammarino's story. Well, welcome back to The Journey, Colleen. Thank you so much again for coming on for part 2. It's going to be amazing, just like part 1. And if you missed part 1, please go back and watch it. You've got to watch them consecutively because it is an amazing story.
Thank you so much for having me back. It is such a pleasure.
Okay, so we left them with a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Did you get an abortion?
No, I did not.
Whoa!
So it really got pretty intense between his family and my mom, because I mean she just felt like my whole life was going to be ruined, and so when I finally convinced my mother, I said, if you try to force me to do this, you will never see me again. And she's like, well, what does that mean? I said, you'll never see me again. I said, I have no idea where I'll go, what I'll do, but you will never see me again. I cannot do something like that. And, it's so amazing to me. I can't take credit for that. You know what I mean? It was like, that was something, it was just, it's something from God on the inside of you that knows right from wrong, right? And I just knew that I could not do that. I didn't even understand. First of all, as I told you before, I didn't even understand how you got pregnant, number one, but now it's like, how do you kill your own child? I mean, my mind was just going crazy. So then finally they said, okay, we won't make you get an abortion, but you're going to go to an unwed mother's home. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that either. And I mean, they were like, I don't know where it was. It had to just come from the Lord, seriously, because I just said, why would you do that to me? Why would you send me away like that? Why are you ashamed of me? I've screwed up. I've screwed my life up. I know I have shamed you. I'm so sorry, but what do I do now? I need help. I don't need to be pushed away. So at that point, my boyfriend stepped up and said, I want to marry her. And so
Had you guys had communication during that time?
a little bit, not much, because they were like, now I was because they blamed me for
Of
him getting
course.
me pregnant. I
Yes.
mean, when his parents started that, I looked at them and I said, do you understand I didn't even know what sex was until I met your son? And of course, that was really tough on them because
Yes.
then they're like, well, now what else has he been doing? Right. But, anyway, that was a big deal because he said, I want to marry Colleen. Well, I didn't really want to marry him because I didn't know what that was going to mean either. But I knew I was not going to get an abortion. And I was like, you're not sending me to some unwed mother's home. Trust me, I've heard about those, right? Even though I didn't know much, I'd heard about, all of a sudden somebody's in school and you never see them again, right? Oh my gosh. So it was just really scary. It really was. And, and seriously, at 15 years old, I would, I didn't even really know what I was doing. And so I told him, I said, yes, I'll marry you. Well, being 15 years old, they had to take me to court and we had to get special permission so that I could get married. I had to have special permission so I could learn how to drive a car at 15 because I was going to need to take care of myself and, the child that I was going to have. And so everybody agreed. We had a real small little ceremony and at a Unity church. They did not believe in Jesus. They believe in something way out there somewhere, but they were friends of my mother. So we had a little ceremony there. And then the really bad stuff started happening. And the marriage was not good at all.
Right away.
Yeah, pretty much right away. And while I was pregnant with my first daughter, it got pretty bad, because I'm scared. I don't even know what this means. He's scared, thinking, how am I going to take care of you and a child? And, he had just graduated high school and he started working for a construction company. So he was making a little bit of money, right? I mean, it wasn't horrible. But we just had a small little place. It was the top level of an old house. So it was just two little bedrooms, a tiny little living room, and a kitchen that was like this, and a bathroom. That was what it was. But for me, it was where I was living now, right? And, I was really going to try to, cook dinner and do what I thought a wife was supposed to do. But I think he was starting to feel trapped and angry, and again, back then I couldn't see it, but I do now. I mean, I forgave him long time ago, but he started coming home very angry and, I'm kind of feisty. I was real feisty then. And it was like he'd say something to me, man, I just shot right back, and then he'd shoot back, and then I'd shoot back, and it wasn't good. I didn't know about self-control and temperance at all, and neither did he. But then it started getting physical, and he started hurting me when he'd get really angry. I mean, it didn't happen a lot, but once is enough. And so by this time now, I'm probably pretty close to 8 months. I'm probably already, I think, around 8 months pregnant. And we got into a really, really big fight. I don't even remember now what it was, and it doesn't matter. And he got so angry, he picked up a big lamp. And I mean, it was a big, tall ceramic lamp. He grabbed it like this and bam, right across my stomach. And I ended up in the hospital. And I thought I was going to lose, or I was going to have the baby, a month early. But that did not happen. But I'll tell you what, man, it hurts so bad. And so about a month later, I had Trina, my oldest daughter.
And you stayed in.
Well, I didn't. Where did I have it? My mother
Wow.
would not take me. She's like, honey, you made your bed. You're gonna lie in it. It was like there was just no compassion. I even, reached out to other family members and they're like, no, hey, I'm in a bad situation too. So, just deal with it.
Right.
So, anyway, so I have my oldest daughter and she's just beautiful. Julieann, she has almost the exact same color hair as you do.
Oh my gosh.
It's the most beautiful auburn, curly hair, just blue pools of eyes, white ceramic
Oh
skin.
my
She's
gosh.
just beautiful, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, how could anybody have even thought about me having an abortion and not having this child,
Yes.
And but now, right? If you if you would have seen pictures of me after I had her, I looked like I was almost dead. I mean, bags down to the middle of my cheeks. I wasn't getting any nutrition. I wasn't taking vitamins. I hardly went to the, OBGYN. That stuff just didn't happen. It's like you go if you need to, but other than that, we can't pay for it. We don't have insurance. So So I wasn't taking care of myself either physically. And then mentally, just the fighting, all the fighting, and struggling with finances and being so young. He's young, I'm young, you know. I mean, neither one of us knew what it was like to be married or to now have a child and be
Right.
parents, right? Well, so after I had her, we ended up moving to another place. He had gotten another job and he was making more money. But so now, oh gosh, she's maybe 4, 5, 6 months old. But he comes and tells me that we don't have very much money and that I need to start working. I'm like, what? I'm like, I have this baby. What are we supposed to do with her? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I start working as a waitress in this little place. It wasn't very far from where we lived. If I had to, I could have walked, but I didn't. So I start working there, and I'm, back then, I mean, I was making what, $1.85 an hour and some tips. So, I was really working my rear end off at this little, breakfast and lunch place. Well, then he starts getting jealous and he starts coming and parking in front of the restaurant to watch me. And I'm like, what do you think I'm doing? I'm like, what is going on here? And so then he starts accusing me of going back into some back room in the restaurant and with other guys. And I'm like, there aren't any other guys that were, oh, the dishwasher. But I'm like, it's all women. We're all waitresses. You know what I mean? And oh, it just started getting so bad. So it got so bad, Julieann, that my hair started falling out. I mean, literally, I was so nervous and so stressed. My hair just started falling out. And I went to my mother and I said, you have got to help me. I said, look at me. And she's like, oh my gosh, what, and of course she's now, what's going on?
Right.
And so I try to tell her some stuff, but she didn't want to hear it. It was just too much for her. She didn't want to hear it. So, but she bought me a wig so that it was just like a little shag cut wig, that, because I mean, you could see big spots of my hair where it had just come out. And, but because she bought that for me, see, then I looked pretty again and he got ticked off at that. And so one night I came home from work. As soon as I walked in the door, he grabbed me, threw me in the kitchen, grabbed my wig, ripped it off my head, and burned it over our stove.
Oh my God.
And I mean, this is just how angry he's getting, how
Wow.
stressed I am, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, I cannot stay in this. I grew up watching my mom and dad fight, butcher knives to their throats and screaming and yelling and just, hiding behind the couch. And I'm like, I am not going to live like this the rest of my life. Wouldn't you know it, I find out I'm pregnant.
No. I mean, yes, good
I
because I
know,
know
but
you're
but
saying
I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I mean, I don't, I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And of course, there's no other out for me other than having this child. But
right.
I'm thinking, okay, he never hurt the girls ever, ever. He never took anything out on them. It was on me. But, I was getting concerned. Is he going to start hurting the kids? And then thinking about having another one. But no, that never happened. And I truly now, I look back and I think, man, he was just feeling so trapped. You know what I mean? Thinking
Well, he
now,
was so young
yeah,
and you
yeah,
were so young.
oh
So,
yeah.
so
And
now what's interesting as you're telling the story, because I'm just tracking with you as you go, it sounds like you've repeated history.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what was happening. But
Yeah.
now he wasn't, he would drink, but he was not an alcoholic, or it wasn't anything like that. Now, if he was doing anything else, any kind of drugs or anything, I didn't know, and it was not noticeable. I just think that the enemy was creating this anger on the inside of him, about why did I say I'd marry this girl, and now we're going to have another child. How are we going to take care of that? And, all
Oh,
these.
and I'm sure the pressure, the peer pressure of his friends and
Oh,
talking,
yeah.
there's
Oh,
a lot of things that factored into it. But
yeah.
I mean, abuse is never okay. Like in
No,
in
never.
any way, verbal,
No,
physical, whatever.
no, it isn't. But, that's really when things started, I think, going wrong with my body,
Yep.
because of all the stress and, stuff that I was under, and I didn't know what to do with it. Right.
Especially with your hair falling out. That is a sign of
Yes.
stress.
Yeah. And so, I end up having a second daughter, and she's just adorable little peanut, and so now I've got two little girls, right? And but things are not getting well, they would get better for a little bit, and then they would just go right back. And when they'd go back, then they'd get worse. And I mean, it was like, okay. And it finally got to the point where I said, I'm out of here. I said, I can't live like this for the rest of my life. You're never going to hit me again, ever. And so I went to my mom and told her what I was going to do. And she goes, well, you're not coming and living here. And I said, well, I didn't ask you if I could come live there. Thank you for loving me so much. Right. But my sister helped me through it. Um, and, but I got a little apartment, and then, that's when now I've got, a almost a little toddler, because they're only barely 14 months apart. And now I've got a new little baby. But now I'm getting divorced. Well, it was, I take that back. The divorce actually did not actually happen and be finalized. So I stayed with him for a while. And then when my second daughter, she was a year old, is when the divorce was final. So here I am now with a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old.
And you're only 18.
And I I was 17 when I had her. So, but by the time she was a year old, I was 18 years old
So you have two kids, you're 18, and now
and
you're
divorced.
divorced.
I'm like, yeah, my life is pretty much over. So,
Well, our viewers, you guys don't know yet what the story is with Colleen, but these are all the setups for your body to, shut down, all these different, whether it's autoimmune or whatever they are, crazy symptoms that hit your body. This is all the setup for it.
mhm,
And without Christ, we only keep things in because we got nowhere to put them.
right, right.
When he says cast your cares, well, how do you don't, you're keeping all your cares, and we're not made to handle all this. So
No,
now you're in your apartment by yourself,
yeah.
and you are, how are you now? Is your ex-husband, is he paying any kind of child support?
Only when he was forced to by the courts. And that was a constant struggle, for it. But, my dad did the same thing to my mom, right? He was like, make me. And she'd have to take him to court, which costs her more money
Right.
to get him to pay support. So that's basically how it was. Now he would go with stretches and he would pay some, right? A little consistent, but then he'd say, well, I don't have the work. I can't pay. I'm like, well, what do you think I have? Right. So I ended up working 3 jobs. I had a very, very early morning job, and then a late afternoon, and then a evening, but not like till like 10 or 11 or anything. But so the girls were with a babysitter quite a bit, and just so I could pay for an apartment and buy food. I mean, that's really all I had. I had a little car, a rundown little beater, but it got me where I needed to go. And But my oldest daughter started acting out. Um, who knows? I mean, she's looking for her mommy, and
Mm.
she's not there. I'm constantly working. And then when I come home, I'm exhausted. And, so she starts acting out. And, I mean, now some kids will do this occasionally, like, pull stuff out of the refrigerator or go, "Oh, what's this bag of flour?" Well, she did it all the time, and it wasn't her fault. It wasn't her fault. I had no idea what was going on, but it was getting to the point where she was, it was continuous, like just every like she'd go and get all the eggs, throw them all over the walls, and dump out all the milk, and take butter and smear it everywhere, and then open a bag of flour and throw it all over the place, and doing things like this. And so I started sleeping on the floor in front of their bedroom door, so that if she started to get out of the door, I'd hear her, right?
Oh my God.
Well, but then she started doing the stuff then in the bedroom with her and my youngest daughter. And so I'm like, I don't know what to do with her. I would pick her up and love her and tell her, it's okay. Why are you doing this? And I don't know. I don't know, but it got to the point where now I was just so freaked out. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid she was going to hurt herself. I mean,
Yeah.
what if she grabbed a knife or something like that? So I reached out to my mom for help, but I didn't get help there. And once again, I felt totally rejected, and so, but I had to reach out for help, to learn how to help her, and
Right. Now, was there any visitation from the father?
there was very little at that time, very little, not until they got older. So, but he would do weird things, like he went to court
Mhm.
and accused me of tying my children to a railing outside of my apartment door and
What?
leaving them out there. And so here I am in court, right? And he's accusing me of this. It's in writing. His lawyer has it. This happened. And I'm going, they're going to take my kids away from me. I mean, I didn't do it, but the point is
Right.
right. He's, swear he's got witnesses and stuff like this. And I'm just sitting there and I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. And so he, the judge, this is just how God even works on your behalf. So, I would say to people that if you're going through some really crazy things right now, you need to look for those places where God really is
Yeah.
intervening. And you may not know it, but he is. And so it's like this judge just like almost saw right through what he was doing. And he says, okay, so I'm assuming then, right, you have pictures of this, right? And he went, well, no. And he says, well, you obviously then went up and you untied your girls, right? So do you have them now? And he had to say, no. And he said, so, but you called the authorities or called your parents or somebody, right, to come and rescue the girls? No. And he said, Mr. Whatever, he said, I think we're done here. And I mean, he told him, he said, if you lie one more time, you will go to jail for perjury. And that was the end of it.
Gosh,
Now he never did anything like that again, ever after that, right?
but it's so crazy though that he obviously was angry, didn't
Yeah.
want that whole, they didn't want to be have that responsibility. So, when it gets too much, you move out and then he wants you back. I mean, was the point of that? Did he just want to get you back or did he want you back?
No, I don't think he wanted me back. No,
Okay.
no, not at all. And
Just wanted to get even with you somehow.
right. So we pretty much, I
And
never,
was he trying to get custody? Was that the point of that?
uh-huh. Yeah, just
Or
to
what
hurt
would he have
me.
done with the girls?
His mom probably would have stuck them with his mother,
Yeah, yeah.
but so now I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit, right?
Okay.
Because now I'm going, okay, I can't be working all these jobs and So I end up meeting another guy who swears he loves me.
Of course.
And the stuff he got me involved, he never hurt me. It was never physical, but it was other stuff. And so I go through another really, really bad relationship. And now by this time, the girls are 4 and 5 years old. And so I'm in this relationship probably for a year and a half. So they're like 6 and 7 now. And that had to end really quickly.
But were you married?
Yes.
You were married to him. Okay.
Yeah. And there were just circumstances that kind of made that happen. I wasn't pregnant. I did not have any more children. As a matter of fact, during that year and a half, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was in excruciating pain and had no idea what was going on. And I walked into the bathroom and I grabbed my stomach because it just felt like knives were being shoved into my stomach. And my stomach, I looked like I was about 6 months pregnant. And so I said, I need to go to the emergency room. So I get to the emergency room and they tell me that I have a tumor that's growing and they're going to have to give me a hysterectomy. And I'm like 20 years old. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I had to have an emergency hysterectomy because if that tumor would have burst, it was just filled with toxic, waste and everything. It would have killed me. And so it was a horrible situation. And of course, my mother's like, well, that's what you get for
Oh
getting
my
pregnant at
gosh.
15 and, all those things. And I'm like, I can't have that means, do you realize I'll never have any more children? I mean, I wanted to have a bunch of kids, and so I said, well, you know what? I'm not signing the paperwork. And my mother says, yes, you are. And I'm like, well, you can't make me, So she leaves and somebody else, I don't even remember who it was, came into my room and said, Colleen, you have to sign this. You're going to die. Do you want to die? Well, in my head, I'm going, you're taking away from me the opportunity to ever have children again. And they're like, you have 2 beautiful daughters. But see, in my mind, I'm like, all I could see was what you're taking from me, not
Right.
what I had. And so I will say at this moment in time, I think my mom was listening to the Lord. She walked back into the hospital room and she said, okay, you know what? If that's your decision, you won't sign the papers. She said, I'm going to respect your decision. She leaned over and kissed me on the forehead. And she said, so I'm just going to say my goodbyes now. And I will make sure that the girls somehow are taken care of by somebody when you die. And we'll make sure the funeral is done and everything. And she walked out of the room.
Wow. So she basically said, you're dying, you're going to die.
And I was laying there and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't want to die. I mean, it hit me like a Mack truck, and I was like, I don't want to die. Oh my gosh, just the thought of who would be taking care of
Yeah.
those girls. I was like, I yelled for my mother. My mom was standing right outside the door. She comes running in, and I said, go get them. I'll sign the paper. I'll sign the papers. So I signed the paper and literally they wheeled me off and I had an emergency hysterectomy. So now,
Well, now question. So was that like all of a sudden one day you were 6 months pregnant, like it looked like
yes,
that? Or it was growing?
apparently I'd had it for a while, but the doctor said that it was probably only around a golf ball to a tennis ball size. So, even though you had a little pooch here,
Right.
you couldn't, it wasn't noticeable. But he said what happened is these types of tumors, when they start filling up, they just go. And then
Wow.
that's when, it's like it's an emergency. You get that thing.
Right.
And so here I was at 20 years old. Now I'm thrown into a medical menopause.
Oh
I
my
was
God.
already a mess. So Anyway, so it wasn't long after that happened, I ended up getting divorced again. And well, I'll tell you, by that time, man, some really bad things had happened. And I remember laying in the bed at night and he was gone. It was just me and the girls again. And I was just looking up at the ceiling and I was so numb just from everything that had been happening. And I just said, God, if you are real, I need to know. I don't know why am I even here? You know, my life has been nothing but just mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. The only good thing that I have is that I have two beautiful little girls. That was it. I mean, I felt like I had nothing. And so I found another job and I started working at a factory. Now it was really hard work. But, I was young, strong girl, and
Right.
I'd have beat anybody up just looking at me sideways. So it's like I start working at this factory, and I had begged them to give me the day shift, and I told them I have two little girls. If I'm working nights, they're at school. I don't see them. They come home. I leave, and now they're with a babysitter. And this one foreman called me in one day and said, all right, tell me your story. I said, my story? He goes, about your kids. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh my God, I can't tell you my story. And, I'd never told anybody anything. And so I told him, and he said, we never, ever do this. You got to be here like 10 to 15 years to get day shift. I'm putting you on day shift starting next week. What? You know? And so that's like things started turning, just slightly turning,
Yeah.
right? So while I'm working there, I meet another guy. Now, and this is the thing, right? When you don't know Jesus, it's like you're looking for love, you're looking for affection. You're
Well, wasn't
looking
there a song looking for love in all the wrong
in
places?
all the wrong places. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that was I was the poster child for that song.
Well, plus
And
I mean, it's like you were an orphan. You had been rejected
mhm,
by your father, rejected by your mom, rejected by your first husband,
mhm,
rejected
yeah,
by your second. So, of course,
yeah,
you're trying to fill that void somewhere. And that's what
yeah,
we do. We just keep turning to man.
yeah. And that was it. But the again, me crying out and just saying, God, if you're really real, I need to know. Well, it's like those. It's almost like that's when I gave him permission to show me
Yes.
he was real. And so that job, moving me from a night shift to a day shift, and trust me, I knew it. And I mean, honey, boy, did I get persecuted for getting day shift from some of the ladies that had worked there for a long time. And they were like, they exploded all over me, the foreman, the president, the, union that they were trying to get in. Oh my gosh. And I was like, I don't care. I have day shift. I get to see my daughters at night. Shove it. I mean, that's where I was in all of that. And so, so anyway, meet this other guy. He's working another shift, and he's in management. And so I don't even remember how like it happened, but we ended up. Oh, I think I know. I really do. I pray that the people that are watching this, that really from this is not to glorify the bad things, bad choices, mistakes, but it's to show you that you could be in some of the worst places and doing the worst things, but just know that God is always working in the background to bring you up and out. So, you know, um, the only reason that I can look back on all these horrible things now and not cry and lose it and, be devastated is because I'm a new creation in Christ. I know my Father in heaven loves me. That's the only reason. And
Yes.
so if, any of the viewers, you're going through these things or you have gone through them, all I can tell you is if you will, with your heart, cry out to him and say, God, show me you love me. Show me you're real. Show me where I'm missing it. He will do that for you, but you got to be looking for it. And so we start dating this guy. And so I kind of tell him about all the bad choices. I said, you might as well know who I really am. Because at this time, I'm going, well, I'm going to tell you who I really am. This is the baggage you're getting. If you want to like me, if you want to be with me, this is what you're getting. And oh, by the way, I have two beautiful little girls. And wherever I go, they go. So that was my package I was offering somebody. And he accepted it. And so, again, still not knowing Christ, we end up living together for a while. Well, he ended up having a really bad knee injury from college playing football. And so he ended up having to have surgery. When he was in the hospital, he had asked an aunt of his to have a priest come and talk to him because he was also raised Catholic. Well, no priest ever came to see him. So he ends up coming home. I'm still working, but he's not because he's on disability or short term, whatever it was, while I was recovering. And well, she had actually called and asked him, so did the priest ever come to see you? And he's like, nope, and she's like, oh, okay. Never asked, never said anything. Well, she's born again, spirit filled. We're like, she's the weird aunt, right, out there. Well, she sends her pastor to our little townhouse that we were living in. And it was later at night, probably around 8:30. The girls were already in bed sleeping because, they got up and were going to school in the morning. And plus I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, making their lunches, getting ready, and then going to work because I started at 7 a.m. And so still working in the factory. And so I hear this knock on the door, and we're both in the bedroom watching TV. And I said, was somebody supposed to come over here tonight? He goes, nope, not that I'm aware of. And I'm like, oh, well, whatever. So I just sat there and knock, 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 knock. And he goes, you better go see who it is. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get up and go out, and I open up the door, and there's this little short Italian guy standing at my door. And I looked at him and I'm like, what do you want? I was not nice. And not at all. And he said, and I will proclaim his name forever, Pastor Crisafulli. And he asked me, are you Colleen? And does his name, whatever his name was, does he live? I went, yes. And how do you know us? Right? I mean, I was like, what are you doing here? And how do you know who I am? And so he tells me he's the pastor of this church. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no. And he goes, someone's aunt asked me to come. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hurt her. And so we're just standing there. The screen door, he's standing outside, I'm standing inside, and we're just standing there after he tells me this. And he doesn't say another word. He's just as quiet. And I mean, I'm standing there going, what the heck do I do? And I looked at him and I said, well, you didn't want to come in, did you? He goes, I would love to. So I said, oh my gosh. So I'm the one that opened up that door, no pun intended, right? So I fling open the door, and I said, come on in. And he comes in. I grab him by the shirt and his tie. I shoved him up against the wall, and I shut the door, and I said, don't move till I come back out here.
Oh my gosh.
This is a true story. I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. So I go back to the bedroom, and he's like, what the heck's going on there? So I tell him, your aunt sent some pastor out there. And he goes, great, go out and talk to him. And I went, oh no, that's your aunt, her pastor. You're going to go out and talk to him. And so now we're having this big fight in the bedroom, and he can hear every word going on, right? So finally, after about 20 minutes, he manages to get up out of the bed. You know, his knee is like this big. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care how much pain you're in. I said, I'll break your other knee, but you're going out there with me. And so we get up and we get to the door, and I said, he's probably gone anyway. So we walk out there. Sure enough, he's standing in the exact same spot I put him. And we come out. So I sit on the floor, and I said, well, you want to sit down? You know, and I pointed to the couch. And he went over and sat on the couch. My boyfriend sat in the chair. I'm sitting on the floor, very far away from him. And he starts sharing about Jesus Christ going to the cross, dying for my sins, and how much he loves me. And now remember, the only time that I'd ever really heard any of that was from my grandmother's church.
Right.
Plus, I would hear my grandmother praying. You know, she would open up her big Bible, and I'd see her underlying stuff and, you know, things. And I'm like, what is that? Right. And because I mean, we had a big old Bible like this. It was about this thick, and it just laid on the
And it
coffee.
never was opened.
No, I mean, you dusted it every now and then, but that was it.
Yep.
And so, I mean, literally, and we were both high when he got here, by the way, when he showed up at the door.
I'm glad you added that. That's
I think
very
that's why I was so antagonistic. And it's like, but you know what? When he was sitting there and he started sharing, I was as sober
Oh my gosh.
sober could be. And I mean, it was as if it was like God was in that room. So I look up at my boyfriend, and his whole countenance is changing,
Wow.
like totally changing. And so, you know, Pastor Chris Foley says, would you like to receive this Jesus and receive this love? And I mean, you know, and of course, you know, your mind is going crazy because it's like, nobody can love you like that. Trust me, not one person has ever loved me unconditionally,
Yep.
ever. And why would God want to love me now that everything I've done wrong now is being exposed? And I'm like, how could God love somebody like me? Right. But, you know, he asked the question, would you like to receive Jesus and receive this love from him and this salvation? And I just, out of my mouth, I said, yes. I didn't care what he was saying or thinking or doing, but he said yes too. And so he led us in this beautiful prayer. It was just short, wasn't like some big religious thing, you know, that I'd heard at church. And I remember, now mind you, I'm sitting on the floor. I'm quite a distance away from him because I didn't want to be near him. But now I'm inching my way up towards him, you know. And so I'm kneeling there on the floor, my head's down, and I'm going, okay, something's supposed to happen now. What's supposed to happen? Something's supposed to happen now? Nothing's happening now. I mean, this is what's going through my mind. And I was almost afraid to open my eyes, right? But I open up my eyes, you know, and I kind of look up at him, and he's just smiling. And I turned and looked at my boyfriend, and I swear he looked like an angel. It was like the light of God, the glory of God was all over him. And I'm going, okay, whoa, wait a minute. How? So I'm like sitting in front of Pastor Christopher, and I'm going, okay, you see that? Why isn't that happening to me? You know? And I said, am I supposed to be feeling something? Did I not do it right? I said, see, God doesn't love me, does he? I mean, all this stuff started coming out, and he just stopped me. And he said, what we're seeing right there is very unusual. He said, whatever happens, Colleen, it happens inwardly. You know, you'll know. And I'm like, but no, 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 no. That should be happening to me. Why isn't that not? And so I was so stuck there, right? And so then he started showing me scriptures about whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. It doesn't say you're going to feel like you're saved. It doesn't mean that something happens miraculously, but it says you are saved. And then Romans 10:9 and 10, he gives me those verses. And so he finally got me to the point where I said, all right. And he goes, but I'm going to leave my phone number here. If you have questions, you can call me, right? So I said, okay, deal, right? So he leaves. He's like having an out-of-body experience. I don't know what's going on with him. I am not. And so we go to bed. I get up in the morning and I get up and I'm starting to make lunches for the girls, take to school. And I'm up and I got my coffee. I'm like, wait a minute. I haven't lit a cigarette. And I mean, by that time, I probably had smoked 20 cigarettes. I smoked up to 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I had not lit a cigarette. Not one profane word had fallen out of my mouth, which by 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I'm sure probably about 200 or 300 of them had already fallen out of my mouth. I was like a sailor. And, you work in a factory, you work with all these grufty people, and it just, even though I wasn't like that when I was younger, but now all the anger, the rejection, man, don't mess with me kind of girl. I'll hurt you. And that was my persona, even though it was all insecurity. And so I'm going, okay, so God, how come I haven't had a cigarette? I mean, I don't think I've said a cuss word. And all of a sudden, I just started sensing that something was different on the inside of me, right? And now this was on a Friday when this all happened. So now this whole weekend, I'm realizing I was completely delivered of cigarettes, delivered of ever wanting to drink again. I mean, I stopped like the swearing, just like, I'm like, where did this go? I'm like, what happened to me, right? So I called him, we called his aunt. That was a trip, but we told her what we did and she's rejoicing, and I'm like, I have no idea what all this stuff means and everything. And so she says, you have to start reading the Bible. I'm like, why? I've never read the Bible. Why would I start reading the Bible? And she said, because that's where truth is. I'm like, oh, and long story short, I go to work on Monday morning. Now, I'm the only one going because he's still recovering. And, so I walk into work and the first thing everybody does is goes into this big lunchroom. I mean, you could fit like 80 people in there. They're all smoking away and drinking their coffee, and stuff. I walk in, I open up the door and this burst of smoke comes out in my face, and I yelled to everybody. I screamed it. I said, hey, everybody stopped, and they looked up at me and I said, I found Jesus this weekend. I got saved.
And now we're out of time again.
Oh, now it's time. Oh my gosh.
Yes. So this is a good place to end. And please come back next week because there's even more to this story. Wow, this is an amazing story. And what a story about redemption. And thank God for that pastor that walked into your house. And even though you were rejecting, that's why we can't look at how people are responding to us. We've just got to tell them about Jesus.
Amen.
It's like we throw the Jesus bomb in and then we get out.
Yeah.
And we let the Holy Spirit take care.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for coming back on this second episode. So we are ready for our third, and we'll be back next week for more of Colleen.
Bye now.
Wow. So after 3 husbands, 2 children, 2 beautiful girls, and divorce. She gets saved. Praise God that somebody had the knowledge to send that wonderful pastor to their house. And as much as sometimes when we feel rejection, when we're trying to tell someone about Jesus, that we might shy away from it, that man did not. Because of that, her life completely changed. I am just so excited for you, not just to see that you saw this episode, but you've got another episode coming. Thank you guys so much for watching and being a part of Healing Journeys today and a big part of the journey. We bring this to you so that you can see that you're not alone and that there are people out there that are experiencing the same problems, but God, He loves you so much. So if you'd like to help us bring these shows to you, please go to healingjourneystoday.com and donate. Anything can help us, and I mean everything. And don't forget to subscribe and to share these videos with everyone you know. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on The Journey.